So The Last of Us Season 2 is finally out, and much like the first season, it makes some great efforts to expand on its characters, leading, supporting, or background. As an avid fan of the source material, the fleshing out of every new backstory and perspective became what I appreciated most about the first game's adaptation. Can the same be said for Part 2 though? We all know this season has its problems, and I'm not here today to evaluate every little deviation. Instead, I'd like to focus my analysis on a single character that myself, and what seems like a good chunk of the fandom, are glad got the HBO treatment. I'm of course talking about Dina. In my opinion, Season 2 made some substantial changes that elevate Dina from a serviceable supporting character to a great one. And what's perhaps most remarkable is that the majority of those tweaks aren't crazy drastic. They usually have to do with slightly reframing motives and relationships to give her so much more agency while still keeping the plot intact. I mean, take something as surface level as her personality. The only thing they've done is delivered her quirks in a more intelligent way. Consider this conversation with Ellie from early on in the game.
I think we should go out like Eugene.
From a stroke?
No, from old age, like living a long life.
You? No way. Come on. You're way too reckless.
Oh, look who's talking.
Pretty cute. But this is a dynamic we're only ever told about, we never really see it. That is until 2025. In episode 1, the beats of that horseback conversation are all represented through actions alone. Ellie recklessly lunges towards the infected, only to be held back by Dina. They listen. She counts 2 of them. Ellie convinces her to take them on against her better judgment. Dina obliges. These 2 scenes ultimately serve the same characterization purposes. They both establish that while Dina is the less impulsive one, they both ultimately throw caution to the wind. The only difference is that the show does this actively and visually. And as a bonus, this scene serves as an invisible setup that is paid off in episode 4 to tacitly reveal Dina's chilling realization of the subway horde. This more active method of defining Dina is a trend throughout the season. Another example. In Ellie's game journal, there's a really endearing passage where we learn just how flustered she got over Dina's advances. Rather than that text just existing for the sake of flavor, the show prioritizes those moments to immediately showcase the essence of our lead's relationship. We're allowed to witness the fun power dynamic of Ellie desperately trying and failing to stay discreet, while Dina confidently plays this flirting mind game for her own amusement. Episode 1 is really all about thoughtfully laying down our status quo while organically endearing us to the new characters and dynamics of this season, Dina especially. It's a nice hour of catch-up before episode 2 swiftly shatters any feelings of security, which a lot of scenes with Dina actually prime us for, perhaps none better than her debut.
I can't hold myself responsible for another person's emotional state.
Are you in fucking therapy?
In my opinion, one of the biggest and most welcome changes to Dina in this season is that she has an actual relationship with Joel now. We know in the game that they were acquainted, but it's not like we ever see them interact or even get the impression of the type of relationship they did share. But here, Joel literally considers her more of a surrogate daughter than Ellie.
Now that one treats me like a human being. She talks to me, says hello, gives me a smile, looks up to me, makes me feel like I'm a good guy, which I am. See, Dina understands me, like she's my kid or something.
This accomplishes a ton. It emphasizes the distance between Joel and Ellie, it contextualizes where Dina stands in the community of Jackson, and more importantly, gives her an actual stake in the mission post-episode 2. I should probably drop a spoiler warning here just in case, as I will be discussing both versions of this story in detail, so consider yourself warned. When Ellie decides to go after Abby in the game, this is Dina's reason for accompanying her.
Ellie. You go. I go.
And this is her reason in the show.
I loved him too, you know.
The former response comes from a satellite character, while the latter comes from a true deuteragonist. A huge reason Dina feels so much more actively involved in the show is because she finally has a proper motivation. Her game counterpart being this constant yes woman to Ellie's path of self-destruction, seemingly without any convictions of her own, is infuriatingly passive. Game Dina is a spectator in Ellie's story, while show Dina is a participant. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, she's a supporting character. What does it matter if she lacks agency in the story? It's Ellie's job to drive it forward. And you are half right in thinking that. Yes, Ellie needs to be forwarding the plot as the protagonist, which she still is, but a supporting character's purpose isn't to just exist as a soundboard or sit back as a triangulation plot device so we know where the next chapter takes place. A good supporting character influences both the logistics and themes of the protagonist's journey. Don't believe me? Just look at Ellie in the first season and game. Joel is the primary plot motivator, but Ellie doesn't let him just drag her around compliantly. She challenges him to let her help, to open up, to not leave her with Tommy. She still affects the story and Joel's character development. In fact, she's pivotal to them. It feels a lot harder to say that about Dina in the second game. There's a single instance during the Seattle days where she tries to caution Ellie but can't bring herself to it.
What, you're gonna go now?
Yeah, we have a lead.
Like, at least just wait for Jessie to rest up.
She could be gone by then.
Ellie.
We know her location. Maybe Tommy does too. What?
Nothing.
We don't get any explicit pushback from her until literally her last scene well over 20 hours into the game.
So what? I'm just supposed to sit here and wait for you? For God knows how long, just thinking you're fucking dead the entire time?
I don't plan on dying.
Yeah, well, neither did Jessie. Or Joel.
It's a well-written, cathartic plea, no doubt, but it happens way too damn late. Game Dina in a lot of ways feels less like a character and more like a symbol. For the majority of the runtime, she represents this innocent life Ellie could have if only she abandoned her vengeance. She's presented as easily pitiable as she continues throwing up and sleeps away pregnancy fatigue. She's a helpless victim that isn't deserving of Abby's knife to her neck. She compliantly sits back and takes care of Ellie's wounds. They even flaunt around that ideal life Ellie threw away on the farm. Now, that's not to say there isn't a lot of overlap between iterations. Show Dina still vomits, she's still pregnant, and she's still sidelined, albeit way later, thank God. And there is nothing inherently wrong with any of that. Having sympathetic characters is a good thing. That just can't be all that they bring to the table. And fortunately, HBO's version does a lot to fully flesh out our co-lead. We get the instant impression that Dina has to be on this mission, both for her and Ellie's sake. She was in the room when Joel was killed. Abby's goons drugged her, so she also hates the WLF. This version of Dina doesn't take punches lying down, and that calculatedly vicious side of her shines through in nearly every episode. Let's start with how her backstory has been reframed to better suit her involvement. Here's Game Dina's version.
How old were you when you first killed someone?
We talking infected?
No. Fully conscious, non-fungal person.
10?
Wow. What happened?
Guy was coming at my mom. I stabbed him.
Shit. You got me beat.
The intention of this conversation's casual nature is to reinforce how normal killing is for children who are raised in this world. But this is ultimately a throwaway line. It exists for flavor rather than to tie into motivations or main themes in any meaningful way. The show refuses to squander that opportunity. In episode 5, Dina's story has been dramatized. She was even younger this time, 8, and she came home to a raider having already murdered her mother and sister. But that's not even what I'm praising it for. It's because of what she says after.
Whatever reason Joel gave those people to do what they did, he didn't deserve that. And I think, what if I hadn't snuck out? What if my mom and sister were beaten to death in front of me? What if that motherfucker made me watch as he did it? Would it make a difference if my family had hurt his people first? No. No.
I've seen some interpret this as somehow didactic towards Ellie, but that's not what's happening at all. This monologue is in response to Ellie suggesting that Dina should be staying back at the theater. It's about Dina sticking up for herself and proving that her obsession with revenge is as egregious as Ellie's. Don't get me wrong, Dina is a far worse person in the show, but a far more compelling character that feels like she actually belongs in this story. And it's not like this is the only time her desire for vengeance is expressed. The third episode is chock full of moments where her actions completely sell how much she wants this, while also giving us that precious supporting character pushback. The fact that she has this thorough plan of a route, provisions, the acquisition of those provisions, and a rendezvous time all illustrates that this has been on her mind for a while. It mattered so much to her that she went through all the effort to ensure there was as little chance for failure as possible. She wants Abby dead. And it even continues that characterization of her being driven by passion, yet still approaching analytically. She revels in the pursuit of justice without letting it cloud her logistical judgment, something she routinely calls Ellie out for.
You cost us time. You let them get away.
First of all, this town was wreckage and funerals for weeks. Nobody was going to go after anyone. And then it occurred to me that if you want to find someone and the only thing you know about them is where they're going to end up, maybe let them get there.
While the game glorifies Dina's innocence, the show glorifies her adroitness and conviction. She isn't a burden as the game literally labels her, but now a critical player in the hunt for Abby. Ellie would be dead without her, and vice versa. And to be fair, they'd both be dead without Jesse. They were more than in over their heads in episode 5, which speaks to their stubbornness. Even with these changes to make Dina more active, the writers ensured she didn't come off as indestructible, which is paramount for a zombie show. Moments of levity are pretty crucial in this genre if you want the action to hit with any weight at all. The difference this time is that those pockets to breathe are made to feel more worthwhile due to some more subtle yet substantial changes. The Take On Me scene is a perfect example. Not only is it directed better, but it also serves purposes beyond just being a cute moment. Since Dina had a relationship with Joel in this iteration, Ellie playing guitar acts as a shared memento. It's the only way they have left to feel his presence. After the lengthy journey that has been their trek to Seattle, it's nice to have a reminder that Joel's influence hasn't vanished, and that this journey for him was done out of love. Because that's what The Last of Us is ultimately about. Every main character's actions have been done with love at the impetus. Whether love is being sought out, stolen away, or protected, this series wants you to know that love itself has no inherent morality. It's merely a powerful motivator that can lead one down paths good and evil. That being said, it was crucial that Ellie and Dina's journey captured both sides of that coin. Their shared repulsive brutality and serene intimacy ultimately stem from the same emotions, the latter being put on full display through a certain romance subplot. The first change to Ellie and Dina's relationship that a fan's gonna notice is the timeline. These two don't become official until over halfway through the season, compared to the game where they were a thing arguably before Joel even dies. This is another fairly minor change that I also reckon is for the best. It means that every one of these early cutesy scenes are made to feel more intentional as they're working towards the resolution of a plotline. In the game's version of the Take On Me sequence, they're already calling each other babe at this point. Ellie's serenade here isn't exactly breaking a lot of new ground for their relationship. In fact, so little is achieved through this interaction that it's optional. The show recontextualizes this moment so progress is being made. It's Ellie expressing a new level of vulnerability while Dina falls for her even more than she thought she could. The adaptation even takes this seemingly superfluous line and runs with it for the entire episode.
You should have kissed me then. I wanted to.
Me too.
Again, this sentiment doesn't hold nearly as much weight since they are in a relationship currently. What does it matter if they regret not having said something if it all worked out between them anyway? Genuine contrition would develop if inaction was punished, a fate episode 4 more than flirts with. The subway flee plays out pretty comparably to the game, but we see another solid change when instead of Ellie's mask breaking to reveal she's immune, she sticks out her arm to give the infected a little chew toy, saving Dina in the process. Just as a side note, it's usually a good thing when major story beats are executed due to character choice rather than just coincidence. It's a reliable way to avoid contrivances while simultaneously developing arcs and relationships further, and I'd say this tweak definitely achieves that. Also due to this change and the absence of spores in this episode, Ellie now has to prove she's immune, prompting Dina to be sent spiraling into this painfully ambivalent nightmare. I've seen some people complaining about Dina pulling a gun on Ellie here, and to that I say, dog, do you have any idea what's going through this poor girl's head right now? 1, this is protocol. We see Joel do this with Eugene while referring to the rules of Jackson. 2, you don't make it in this world without being cynical as hell. Even though this is Ellie, she's making a pretty absurd claim that she's never once brought up in the 5 years they've known each other. She's always taken the same precautions as everyone else and acted just as susceptible. 3, what's worse? Giving her a swift and painless death before she turns, or having to see the cordyceps gradually take over all motor and brain function first. 4, Dina is drowning in guilt right now, because Ellie traded her life for hers, because she didn't act on her feelings in time, because the ideal future she envisioned with Ellie was rapidly crumbling away before she even had the chance to confide that she's pregnant. She is uncharacteristically taciturn for the majority of Ellie's plea, and it speaks volumes. Her tear-soaked face and quivering grip on the pistol communicates every facet of the bedlam that is her mind. It is taking everything in her to keep those hands raised. This sequence is stellar work. Can the same be said for what happens after? Now, this is the bit everyone's been clowning on, and I knew I couldn't make this video without talking about it. Once Ellie wakes and Dina's convinced of her immunity, she reveals her pregnancy, and they very abruptly consummate their relationship. I remember my initial reaction to this being something like, okay, I see what they're going for, but I'm not sure about the execution. And that's a shame, man, because what they are going for is genuinely really heartwarming. The intention behind the scene is that with Dina finally confessing her pregnancy, they've both gotten their biggest secrets off their chests. All walls are finally down between them, and Dina's just been given this miraculous second chance to pursue the future she'd imagined. She's learned from her mistakes and isn't about to let the opportunity slip away, so she doesn't hesitate. That's really damn wholesome, man. It just might be a little too poetic and too rom-com-y for the grounded drama they're trying to present here, especially one where Ellie's supposed to be falling deeper into this vengeful grave she dug for herself. But that's not to say nothing good comes from this reframing. Not only are they just really cute together, but the next morning, Dina gets a chance to vent a new internal conflict.
When I was little, I told my mother I like boys and I like girls, and she said, no, you like boys. And it just, I got stuck.
This is a pretty organic wrinkle to her motives that effectively nuances her character. Right off the bat, it's a nice contrast from Ellie that helps both her and us understand that Dina's seemingly infinite conviviality is at least partially a veneer. She's the life of the party, the it girl, the one who controls every flirting mind game, but those weren't done out of cruelty. She wasn't just trying to tease Ellie, she was navigating her own emotions and whether or not she could be at peace with them. Ellie's always felt daunted by Dina's confidence, but this is one of the first times where Dina's looking to Ellie as a role model, as Ellie's really always known for herself. But given the dystopian story this is, it's only natural that bliss is ephemeral. By the end of episode 5, Dina takes an arrow to the thigh and is forced to sit out the season finale. You knew this was coming, I knew this was coming. I'm just glad they kept it as late as possible. And despite Dina being absent for most of episode 7, the writers still drop a pretty big revelation on her that flips everything we've talked about on its head. The last big change regarding Dina happens when Ellie actually tells her what Joel did in Salt Lake. In the game, you could argue that she never really needed to know this, but this time around, she absolutely does. And while I do think the way this information is delivered is a little clunky, Dina's reaction here shares a lot of the same strengths as the gun scene from episode 4. We know everything she's rethinking without her having to utter a word. How maybe she didn't know Joel as well as she thought she did. How maybe Joel did deserve his fate. How she'd been pursuing a killer for weeks without knowing the full picture. How Ellie hid the full picture from her when she thought they were done with secrets. How, even knowing her motives, Ellie wanted to go after Abby from the get-go. How is she supposed to feel about that? And the great thing is, they don't give us an explicit answer. She's overwhelmed, she needs space from everyone, especially Ellie, but manages to handle the situation in the most mature way possible. Her responses are quite terse from here on out, but effective. She wishes Ellie good luck, but makes it clear that they're putting a pin in this and she's not off the hook. Now, is the season finale a great place to introduce a brand new conflict for a character dynamic? In most cases, I'd say no, but given the inherent non-conclusive nature of this portion of the story, I guess I'm willing to let it slide. I'm just happy it stays consistent with the Dina that's been established this season, which isn't something you can say about every character here. her reaction aligns with everything we know about her. She's the more rational one. That's been true. Dina's emotions drive her for sure, but there's also a line. She doesn't know exactly where that line is necessarily, but she's willing to take a good beat to organize her thoughts to locate it before making any rash judgments. Whether it's been characterizing, motivating, or humanizing Dina, I think this season's made some productive enhancements to her overall portrayal. Even though Dina will likely play a far smaller role in the subsequent seasons, I'm glad she got the spotlight she deserved here. It's a lot more gratifying to watch a character that ambitiously paves their own path rather than revolves around a separate incentive they're apathetic towards. And believe me, I have my problems with this season. I understand why everyone is so frustrated. But media discourse can get so exhausting when it's so overwhelmingly sardonic. The goal of this analysis wasn't to make absolute statements or convince you to like Dina if you didn't, but rather present the perspective of someone that found something to appreciate amidst a somewhat messy season of television. This is all my opinion at the end of the day, and I'm very grateful you found my breakdown to be worthy of your time. If you agreed or disagreed with anything I said, please let everyone know down in the comments. I'm always super curious to see how different fans interpret different creative choices. And if you did enjoy this video and want updates on future uploads, make sure to follow my Twitter @XandersCut, as you'll find him there. That's all I've got for now, so here's a big thank you your way, and I hope you have a fantastic day.